Good evening. Welcome. What are we at? Episode 67. Greetings. Good evening. Hope you're sat in comfortably and you're ready for another show. It's not a race preview this time. How weird is it that we've got a bank holiday Monday coming up, but no race day? I know, it's bonkers, isn't it? But I'm sure we'll survive. We've got lots of racing yet to come up. And we're going for a very different show this time. And that is because I wanted to get two people on board. One that has a new title and one that has a new job with us. A face that we're going to know. We know around these parts, but we're going to have a chat with him and find out what he's all about. And I'm going to warn you now as well, there's a serious element that we're going to be covering tonight as well that's thrown at me like a hairy curveball, is that we're going to be talking about the Motorsport UK ratifying today the rules, the new rules, the tweaked rules. I feel scared saying about it, if I'm honest. Track limits. It's fine. The good news is, what I will say before we get into it, is that they've listened, and I think that it kind of meets nicely in the middle, and we're going to be looking at that and covering that with you guys. Quickly catch up with people that are watching. Welcome to you all. Chris Mason, good evening all. Hope everyone is well and enjoying the sunshine. I was, mate, but I'm not now. I'm indoors, but I was enjoying it. Tim Perry, one of the Orange Army. Dilly Dilly. All right, if you insist, mate, I'll have a Dilly Dilly. Cheers. Evening all. Not long to the race weekend. Agreed. Our very own Emma Strawford. Good evening, everyone. French Red as my sofa companion. Cheers, Em. You know, mine's not going to be French Red. Mine's gin, as always. Henry Moore. Good evening, Henry. And George Moore as well. Welcome to George Moore as well. And it's Carl Alden. Welcome, Papa Alden, to the show. So let me bring on our guests. I'm going to bring them both at the same time. Oh, just quickly, sorry. Darren Duffield, the Spanner Boy now we got to call you, haven't we? You're not behind the wheel as much, are you? So I feel like I should say that. Lewis Bird, good evening, Dorsey. Good evening, everyone. Love the T-shirt. Absolutely. The new top. It's got to wear the corporate stuff. One of the Herminators. Evening all. Evening Herminator. George Moore says, I think you know my dad. There's several that could be, George, so you'll have to forgive me. I suspect I know, but you'll have to tell me, George. But welcome to the show. Chris Hignall, hello, mate. Evening to everyone. Tim Fuchs-Bell says, evening all. Evening, sir. Carl Alden says, French Red, I prefer a Dutch blonde. What, you mean a left beer or something like that? That's what you mean, isn't it, mate? Chris Mason. Joshy says hi. Hi, Joshy. Hello, mate. You all right, buddy? Good to see that you're still watching some of this show. Matt Coyle, the Saloon Championship coordinator. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, mate. I hope you're doing well, mate. I've seen your messages. We got our eye on you, buddy. We've got your back. Sue Woodland says, evening all. Hi, Sue. George says, my dad is Ed Moore. That was the one I was thinking it mainly was. Ed Moore, one of our Formula 4 champions and an absolute legend, boss of head tech and motorsport events and everything, and just lovely, lovely family. And it's great to see you all watching, my friend. Emma Strawford says it had to be a French Red because her dad would curse her. That Howard would go mental if it was anything other than a French Red. And I think Ian Danaher, who I can see in the green room, would probably chuckle and know that that's true. But yes, he's nodded. He knows full well it'd have to be a Howard French Red for that one. On that note, let's bring them on. Oh, we've got a dog on the show as well. Let's bring... we got... and I wasn't calling you a dog, Ian. You'll see that Cat's got a dog there. Good evening to you both.
You weren't calling me a dog either.
Hi, Chris.
Obviously, I wouldn't get myself in that much trouble. Good evening. Good to see that the comments are coming in. Lee Waterman says, evening all. Caroline Sutton, evening all. Hi, Caroline. Still our heart is with you, Caroline. Obviously, our hearts are still broken of everything, and it's lovely to see you. And I think you've even got season tickets, so hopefully we'll see you plenty at there, and Mark will never ever be forgotten, it's safe to say. Right, good evening to you both, and first of all, I'm going to start with you, Kat, and I've got to remind myself because I don't trust my memory, because I've got to remember it. Formerly race coordinator, now racing club manager.
Thank you.
In fact, I'm going to change this now. I'm going to put this up. There you go. Racing club manager. I mean, Kat, how long has it been now? It's over a year, isn't it?
It's just about 18 months since I joined. It's gone very, very quickly. Yep.
And an awful lot has had to be achieved in that time when we consider that you had the big awards due as well as the race meets and everything. I mean, it seems like the wrong thing to say, but you must have settled in by now.
You know, I think I have. And actually, although last year we had lots of things that never happened, I think it was actually a really good test. Coming back, I was probably quite lucky to join after the pandemic, so that, you know, we were starting not from scratch, but having to rebuild things that had changed and stopped over the previous 2 years. But no, I feel really very welcomed, and we are a small team, but it's nice to know that, you know, we're making an impact. And yeah, I think they want me to stay.
We definitely do. You're doing a fantastic job, and you still. What I love, Kat, is that you still love interacting with all of the drivers and everybody related to the race days, don't you?
Yeah, I think I said this to Ken when I first applied for the position. At the time when it was a little tiny for saying race coordinator wanted, and for me, it's always been about the customer journey. So I don't know a lot about the cars, but I do like to be involved with making sure the people that race have a really good time.
Absolutely. Apologies, everybody. I know, Kat, you got your new laptop with that mic on. It seems to be sounding like you're Darth Vader at times, and it's a weird connection to it. Is it a wireless one?
Headset.
No, it's just that
Hold on.
the audio's a bit weird.
Do you want to speak to Ian for a second, and I'll just see if I can sort. How's that? Is that
Actually, I'll
better?
tell you what it is. Hang on. I'll tell you what it is. As I'm just muting Ian for a second because we got feedback from Ian's laptop. That's what it is.
Ah.
There, yes, because that's made a bit of a difference there. You haven't got headphones, Ian. So we're getting it from the speakers. That's fine. Put your hand up if you're going to speak, all right, Ian, because then I'll unmute you. Just got to remember to do that, all right? Sorry, Kat. So that just meant that we sort of were getting you a little bit in and out. But we got the gist. Tim Perry, one of the Orange Army, says, Kat, you're part of the family. You're an asset to the club. You're a keeper.
Oh, goodness. Thanks, Tim.
A lovely, lovely compliment. But I mean, it is. I mean, that comment of the family is that I think we all said it to you when you joined Cat 18 months ago, is that it really is a family, which is why Combe TV even exists at the end of the day. And you probably just took it as a sort of throwaway comment to some extent, but I think you've seen it really is one heck of a family, isn't it?
Oh, I think even when it's a really early start and a really good finish, there's just something very special sort of being a part of race day. Every race day, I still am completely in awe of the fact that that's everyone's spare time. You know, I'm fortunate in that it's my job, but that's everyone's spare time. And, and they invest so much energy, and, it's exciting, it's thrilling, it's stressful, but actually, ultimately, everyone's so friendly. And, I think despite the odd issue, which gets resolved very quickly, I do think everybody really enjoys being racing team, whether that's, spectating, team manager, on the spanners, admin. It's just, yeah, it's incredible, really. I feel very lucky, and I actually feel a little bit miffed that I didn't come across club racing sooner.
Which
Be
I have to
honest.
say that is a lovely comment in itself. Is that a lot of people misunderstand it or don't give it the credit that it deserves, and it's summed up with I've always said it is that obviously I'm very privileged in my commentary role, is that I get to cover a massive spectrum of things up to international GT racing, and yet I will turn to people and say, if I'm brutally honest, the club racing weekends are the most fun. I think Ian, who's there, I know he's only going to be able to nod or shake his head at this one, will probably, even from a Clark's perspective, say it's a lot less stressful when it's a clubby compared to a big international one. And it's the people, it's that spirit. Everybody helps everybody. It's enjoying it. It's their own sort of, like you said, I like that phrase, their free time. You're absolutely right. It's their hobby, those kind of things. And it makes sense. Now, that said, Kat, is that the reason why you've sort of gone from race coordinator to race club manager is that, as you've also found, is that there's an awful lot more to it than necessarily meets the eye, that you have to do behind the scenes to make everything pop and work and bring it together. And it does need those people to really help you out by getting information to you quicker and all those kind of things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I really understood the roles that everybody undertook sort of pre-race and on race day. And I think that, sometimes the racers as well as the teams don't realise how important they are to the whole race day as well. Do you know what I mean? The information that I get, the help, the support, everyone's very kind and friendly. And I think between between everybody that's volunteering or racing or in the teams, there hasn't been a single question or query or moment that I've thought, oh my God, completely out of my depth. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what I'm doing. And I think because for me personally, I really like that customer journey element. It's an opportunity to just be proactive. And what's lovely, I think, about club racing, having sort of stalked many other championships and bigger circuits over the last 18 months, is that when the drivers or the teams or spectators are telling us something, we've got an opportunity to actually make it happen. So very small things to some people, but huge, winner's car, grid walk. Cheryl and I are always talking about ways that we can enhance that journey. Value for money. We're mindful of the fact that, it costs a lot to race. So, how can we possibly make very small changes that will actually make a big difference? So having Ian on board as well, and we had an ops meeting today, and it's just really great to kind of brainstorm lots of different ideas that you just think, well, we won't bother with that because, it used to happen, but doesn't happen no, we can't do that because it's always been done that way. So, and I don't know that would happen in a much bigger organization. So I feel very lucky to, be trusted to help make things like that happen.
Yeah, I think you're right. Is that we're able to turn on a sixpence a little bit rather than the
Yeah,
turning of the QE2, that kind of thing, and I
yeah,
get that.
definitely.
And you're absolutely right, Kat. Is the fact that people who have the misfortune to listen to me know that I'm very much about the show and the experience, all sides of the fence, everybody, and that's what I try to do in the commentary, in this show, etc., etc. And I have to sort of be the one that says, without question, you are one of the people in on the racing club board that are have that same mentality, and that's in the build up to the race weekend, and of course on the day. You and Shirl are absolutely flat out, aren't you?
Yeah. It's a really weird mix of wanting to kind of everything that's going on, but you can't really leave the same position that you're in. And I think that having moved Sign On to the Strawford Centre is just a much more friendly, welcoming environment. Because we have got a job to do on race day, but we are there. If we don't have interaction with people that are racing or spectating, even if it's family members, we want to be involved in that because sometimes we do a lot of planning, a lot of prep. It gets to race day, and then we never see any racing. We never really get to, find out what's happening apart from, Phil doing all the bulletins with me as well, and then printing off the grids, stuff like that. So it's what we'd really probably like to see moving forward is just keeping that nice interaction, people talking to us, letting us know what they feel works well, what maybe we could do differently. Uh, you know, we are sometimes tied because it costs a lot to put a race on. We hire the circuit, the circuit's not ours to use as we wish. So we have to be respectful of lots of other things at the same time. So it's brilliant. We really like it. We had a great meeting today. I think we feel positive about the rest of the season. It's going to have its challenges, as we know, but we just have to, rise above some of those things and move on and make the best of it, really. And and be grateful for those people that do want to sort of take part and spend their hard-earned money with us.
No, absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned one of them there, Kat, was the winner's car. That's been something that has been synonymous with Castle Combe circuit over. Oh, Ian, you'll nod to this one. Decades, it's got to be the winner's car, hasn't it? Easily, yeah. I mean, going way, way, way back. The drivers love it. The fans love it. It's a great thing, but a lot more happens on the day, so it got a lot harder, and it kind of disappeared. Definitely, pandemic as well put a permanent stop to it. But I think you were one of the catalysts, Kat, to really sort of go, guys, can we bring this back? Does the car exist? Can we do it? Kevin from Bristol Sound has to have a massive shout going out. And I know
Oh,
anybody who's
yeah,
at the
huge.
circuit, anybody who's at the circuit will kind of go, yeah, but it's not working. you will notice it's got better and better and better. He is flat out behind the scenes trying to get it working round the circuit so that we can be interviewing, because the only way we can make this work is be interviewing as we're going round. It isn't perfect yet, but it's got a lot better. We can get up to Quarry Corner and just round, we know, and then if we get it wrapped up by then, we're kind of okay. He's still working on bits and pieces, so watch this space. But thank you, Kev, for your amazing work. And I think, Kat, that already we've had the positive feedback on the winner's car yet again.
Oh, definitely. I believe, again, not having seen it, but the first race day was a little bit difficult because we obviously had to communicate what we were doing with the marshals. It was, straight back after a winter season. But no, Shirl, worked really hard to make sure that, we had a driver, a support radio person, that they're there on time. I mean, again, they have other jobs, but they come in because they want to be supportive to Shirl and I and to the club. And yeah, it's lovely. And to see the pictures, of the winners going around, I think it makes a big difference to the spectators as well, because that's one of the things that I find in terms of feedback for the club is it still feels very personal. There are some circuits you go to, you don't have spectators. And I think a lot of ours are very loyal, very passionate, very engaging, and we're not going to please everybody all the time, but actually just those little filling in those gaps and just making sure that we've, got as much interaction with, the paying public as we can, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, agreed. And it is a wonderful idea, and it is lovely to see it back. And us in the commentary team have had to have some sort of input on how we can make it work. And I think that was summed up as well by our attitude was not, oh, I don't think we can because of this. It was certainly expressing what we needed to look at, but it was a can-do attitude, wasn't it? To sort of go, we need to be able to make this happen, so then it will work, and we can do that, and that will work, rather than I'm not sure.
Yep. Yep. It's too easy to kind of say it can't happen. With Cheryl and I and Ian and Ken, and Richard in the team we'll try and express our thoughts on how we should move some things forward, and some won't move forward because they just won't work, and others will do our best. It's a bit like a lot of people say about having entertainment on when there's a weekend race meeting. It can't just put it on. You have to think about what you're going to do, and making sure that the circuit and the club are working really closely together. There's a new events manager that's joined the circuit, so we've got another person to see both the club perspective and the circuits and working how they'll work side by side. So that's really helpful, and that should help push things forward in the right direction even more.
And on that note, Kat, that's another big one that I know with a racing club that's with us on that weekend, is that you've managed to get it sorted that I'm not aware of entertainment per se, but on the 2-day race meet in June, you've got the bar and the cafe staying open in the evening.
Yep. So I think the cafe is hoping to stay open until about 9. The bar will stay open until late. And on the Saturday night, we have between 7 and 11 a silent disco. So I'm sure everyone's
Okay.
been to one. So it's you get your headset, you can tune into different genres and styles of music. So everyone's kind of doing their own thing. So it's very visually entertaining. It's not going to cause any noise pollution to the local population, so we won't have people ringing up, complaining about noise. But it'll be fun and something that we can do to just make it more of a destination and a weekend that people will remember and enjoy like it used to.
Absolutely. And it has many, many years of doing that. And it sounds intriguing. I've not done one yet. I've just got visions of people with headphones on doing big fish, little fish, cardboard box, big fish,
That's
little
it.
fish.
That's it. And then when the chorus drops, everybody's singing a different chorus because you can choose the channel on your headset, you see. So you're not all listening to the same thing, which is going to be very entertaining.
See, I just want to be there without a set of headsets on. I just want to be listening and watching to everyone else.
I
But
hope you stay.
well done on sorting that one out, Kat, because I know that wasn't just our people. That was the Classic Touring Car Racing Club. We're keen for that because they're like us. They're a club. They love having parties and all of that together. So they'll make massive. They're bringing over 100 people. So they'll really, make a lot of use of that. Just quickly catching up for a second. Nick Workman says, greetings to all from the heart of the Black Country in Dudley. Tom Davis says, great to see you guys, and the show is back on air. Greetings, mate. It is indeed. Wiltshire College's David Campion, evening all. Hope you're well. Good evening, David. Good to hear from you, mate. Oh, Graham Shepherd. Sorry, mate. This is a while ago. Good evening, folks. Good evening to you, my friend. Tim Perry confirms absolutely. Kevin is this main sound man. He's a legend of circuit comms. He is. Without him, I'm just aweless in a canoe. I can't say the full sentence for that one, but you know what I'm saying. Matt Coyle says, you've done a fantastic job. So that's really nice. It was big shoes to fill, and you've done a fabulous job. Tim Perry says that will be interesting, the silent disco. And of course, a number of the Orange Army will be staying over, presumably in the Marshall's campsite. So they'll be able to venture down, and that'll be good. I might have to find a way if I can stay overnight as well. I don't know. Tim Fuchs Bale says, as a novice in my first season, I have to say that Cat Shirl and the rest of the team has made what could be a very daunting experience brilliantly fun, with spot-on communication and endless patience answering my questions. Bless, Tim. That's such lovely praise of them, and I'm so glad that it comes from someone else, not just us, because we could get labelled as biased. So that is a lovely, lovely sentiment, and well deserved, Kat. So you take that one into your heart as well. Chris Mason says, thanks to Kevin for the cameras, which now work during the week as well. And some of you might not know this as a legacy of what we did during the lockdown, or when we came out of lockdown and we were able to go racing, but with no spectators. And you'll know that we sort of, we streamed static cameras. It wasn't an outside broadcast, but it was the best that Kevin and I could put together at the time. And about half a dozen of those cameras still exist, and they're up in Race Control. And so Race Control have visibility of that. The medical centre have that downstairs as well. So they're able to see if something happens as well, and they know to get themselves ready to react. Secretly, I get it in my commentary box as well, so I'm able to sort of see things as well. But on that note, I think it's an ideal time to unmute. Oh, that feedback's bad, Ian Danaher. Can you turn your laptop down if you've got no headphones, mate?
Back to Chris.
That's bad feedback that we're getting from you. We'll give it a go, Ian. Otherwise, we're going to need to get you to find some headphones or something to plug in. But even if it's the like mobile ones to plug into your ears or something, but we'll give it a go. But up in Race Control, Ian Danaher, I know that's not your role with the racing club, but those cameras make a big old difference, don't they?
Yeah, huge amount of difference, Chris. I think it's certainly, in the time that I've been away from Castle Combe, has made the life of the clerk of the course a lot easier, because whilst we get a lot of good written reports from our observers, to have the ability to look at footage as well too, can only endorse what you're getting from the observers, and hopefully make any decisions that we have to make the correct ones.
I've got to put this one up. Alan Cooper says, goodness, Ian, I'm feeling my age. I remember when you had hair.
Long time ago, Chris.
To be fair, I'm with you on that one with myself, mate. I can't remember having hair. So I just had to put that up anyway, because that was funny. I mean,
Thank you, Alan.
On that note, obviously Alan's another one of the mainstay of the officials there and what have you. What give us a clue for those that don't know you, Ian Danaher. We know you, but tell people what your background in motor racing is before this role.
Well, I have to say, Chris, it goes back far more years than I would care to admit to, in that I first came to Castle Combe in the early 80s as a very young student in a borrowed car from my father. I was put into the paddock as a paddock marshal, and then sort of came up through the ranks as a flag marshal and an incident marshal, observer, and then obviously I was lucky enough to go into race control under the tutorage of Mr. Strawford, and people like Bob Llewellyn, Dick Mayo, Charlie Woodward, John Porter, who were around about that time, and obviously had a very good grounding in race control, and then became a clerk of the course, which I've now done for nearly 25 years. been away a little bit over the last couple of years. Always kept an eye on what was going on at Castle Combe, but when Ken asked me a few months ago whether or not I would consider taking up this role, I can only reiterate what Kat said earlier on, in that for me, it might sound a little bit silly, but it's like coming home. You know, I've met a lot of old friends in the 8 or 9 weeks that I've been back, but I've met a number of new friends and people that weren't involved in the circuit when I was here last on a fairly regular basis. And the one thing that's come across, that the family atmosphere that existed many years ago is still here, and who wouldn't want to be a part of it?
Agreed, and that's the reason why I wanted people to know that, because that, you know, the real history you got there is not necessarily the history that I am aware of with you, because of course our history is, yes, when you've been a clerk at the circuit, but of course crossing paths at every other circuit around the country. But it's to remember that actually your history does start here at Castle Combe, and the mighty Strawford name and all of that sort of stuff. And I just love that whole sentiment that you're coming home. But it's a very different. I'm just quickly going to say, by the way, Emma's put up, Dad would be so proud to see you in this role. I mean, that's got to be quite an emotional comment, Ian, to be honest with you.
Absolutely, you know, as I said, Chris, if it wasn't for Howard, I probably wouldn't be sat here now, and I certainly wouldn't have enjoyed the as you said earlier, the opportunities that have come to Clark, things like, you know, historic touring cars, and you know, historic Formula 2, and, you know, National Formula Ford 1600s and things like that. If it wasn't for the guidance and the encouragement of the likes of Howard and Roy Hancock, I wouldn't be sitting here now. So I owe them a huge debt of gratitude.
Well, I think that goes round as well, in all fairness, Ian. I know the work that you've done nationwide, let alone locally as well. And I love the fact you even mentioned the Dick Mayo name. For example, I cover I'm very privileged to be invited back to cover the Dick Mayo Sprint live stream that we're doing with Bristol Motor Club, which of course have a major link to the start of Castle Combe as a circuit. It's motor racing is one of those weird places, isn't it? It's massive, but really small as well, isn't it?
It is. Dick and Howard never saw eye to eye on everything, and sometimes as a young clerk sitting in the middle of them, you were looking for a tin hat and sandbags on a couple of occasions. But you know, having those sort of characters around you, you know, the knowledge and the expertise and their ability to deal with different situations, you know, hopefully is rubbed off. And you know, as I say, they were I won't call them challenging times, but they were interesting times. You learned a lot very quickly. You had to learn a lot very quickly, and those sort of good ground rules that I learned all of those years ago hopefully have seen me in good stead as the years have progressed.
Yeah, and I think that not directly correlating to that, but I've got the same sort of emotion, because my commentary career, of course, my spectating career started as a 5-year-old at Castle Combe. My commentary career started at Combe about 12 years ago, I think it is now. And of course, that was Howard, Strawford, and Rodney Gooch were the ones that took me on. And I felt very privileged that they did, that Howard, at the end of year one of the sort of like the trial basis, then agreed for me to become part of the team. And I have not only felt that very passionate for myself, is that is recognized nationwide in people that I didn't realize that it would carry as much weight as it really did. It's a big deal, isn't it? It's a big group.
Absolutely. You mentioned Rodney Gooch, and lucky enough to do quite a few things with him over the years. And the winner's car. The winner's car was something that Rodney introduced many years ago. And as a clerk of the course, and especially as a young clerk of the course, if you didn't run the winner's car for any reason, because obviously it used to have sponsors on it, Rodney often used to have guests at the circuit. If for whatever reason you couldn't run the winner's car, you would sit in race control knowing that within about 2 or 3 minutes of not running the winner's car, Rodney would appear over your shoulder questioning why.
I love that. I do love that. The marketing man has to have the show.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. Okay. I love the fact that Emma's comment here saying the boyos are back. With that accent, absolutely right. Stuart Tinker Taylor, the camp soft call, the Fuffers are all good evening, Chris and co. And Paul Wiltshire says good evening all. Good evening to you, all of you viewers. Thank you for joining us. But Ian, this new role, I mean, very different to being a clerk, isn't it?
It is. I think having been in the role now for a few weeks, I think I count myself very, very lucky to be coming into the club at this stage when all of the circuit championships are in a very, very healthy position. In that, the fact that they're well supported, there's a good standard of driving and good numbers. I won't say it will make the role easy because obviously we're now looking at 2024 and the 75th anniversary of the circuit in 2025 already. But I think we're very, very lucky that the work of the likes of Shirl and Cat and Steve Weston and Co have done, and Ken before me coming along, I think has certainly given me some good foundations to work on. And I think the one thing that I have found in the last couple of weeks is that, I haven't really contacted anybody at the moment. The people that I've spoken to have all been people that I've met in the sport over the years, and they want to come to Castle Combe. We can't accommodate all of them, but I think whilst it's not going to be a particularly easy job, it's going to be made easier by the fact that all of the people that I spoke to or have spoken to over the last couple of weeks, they want to come. They want to join this family. They want to join this party. And I think that is just true testament to the work that the likes of Kat and Ken and Shirl have done, over the years prior to me coming back.
No, agreed, absolutely. And you got your work cut out. I know that you're already. So we're in 2023 now. I say that because I still have to keep reminding myself what year we're in. 2024 and even 2025 seasons are already being looked into by you.
I think we must, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of clubs and there are a lot of circuits out there that are looking to bring events and championships to their circuit. And, we are no different. And I think, if you can try and get ahead of the game, you're not going to get left behind. And I think, from a personal point of view, what I'd like to try and do is to have these conversations now. In that, certainly Benjafields Racing, for instance, they had a terrific day with us a couple of weeks ago. They are committed, I think, to going to either Le Mans or Spa in 2024. But they've said to us, count us in for 2025. We'll be there. So it's things like that I think, as I say, won't make the job easy, but encouraging in that, everybody who's been to the circuit this year, and Kat and I have spoken to all of them, have said that they've thoroughly enjoyed their experience and they want to repeat it, whether it's next year, whether it's in 2025 or 2026. The seeds are sown. We just need to capitalise on, as I said, the good work that the likes of Kat and Ken and Steve have done to make sure that they do come back.
Agreed. I think your biggest challenge when I'm speaking, obviously, nationwide to all the different organisers that I'm commentating on is that you're right, they are really interested in coming to Combe predominantly, but it's about getting them booked soon enough for the year. So that's where it comes in. And of course, we don't necessarily always know the dates that we're able to play with, but we need to sort of get some of them. And there are some very interesting championships that would be interested in coming. And I look forward to that. I mean, this officially, Ian, is your retirement. Am I right in saying?
It is.
You haven't thought that one through, have you?
No, I haven't. But at the end of the day, there's only so much decorating and gardening that you can do. And I hope my wife isn't listening to this broadcast because obviously, as Kat will know, having spent the whole day at the circuit, we've sort of rushed home and got ourselves, into a situation where we're now speaking to you. And
you didn't need to make that sound quite so negative, Ian.
As I said, when I retired last year, there's only so much gardening and decorating that you can do, and to be given the opportunity to work in a sport that's been my hobby for many, many years. As I said, when Ken and I first sat down a few weeks ago, it was, from my point of view, a no-brainer in that it's given me the opportunity to come and work in a sport that I've been involved in for many, many years, and reacquaint with people that I've known for a while, and make new friends. Kat and I met for the first time at the dinner, didn't we, last October? And I've been lucky enough to be in your presence now for 2 or 3 times over the last few months, and it's almost as if we've known each other for forever, isn't it?
What did you used to do then, Ian, before? What have you retired from?
I was a commercial manager with Legal & General, the insurance company.
Oh, okay.
Prior to that, I was with NatWest for a number of years. A lot of people that I've spoken to over the last few weeks, I should say, said, have you just retired from banking? And no, the answer is no. I spent 24 years with Legal & General, but when you start working with colleagues who are younger than your own kids, it makes you think to yourself, have I done this for long enough? And when I turn up for meetings in a suit and tie, and the chap set opposite me has got a gilet and a baseball cap on, it's the time to call it quits.
Yes, I can imagine that when I get that one totally. Got a question here from Paul Wiltshire. Cat, he says, do you play the guitars I can see behind you?
No, I don't. They're my husband's. He's in a band called Johnny's Pocket. So I don't have pictures of the family, but these are his most treasured possessions. You can only play one guitar at a time, but apparently you should have 3 as a minimum. Thank you for asking.
Well, absolutely, and I'm intrigued now. I'm going to have to try and look that band up and hear about that. Chris Savage is watching, even though he's testing at Thruxton. So thank you for that, mate, and good luck testing at Thruxton. Something new. I thought you'd have been there. Right, let's go. First of all, Kat, I'm going to go to you because I'm going to bring up something. We're not going to go into masses of detail. However, I think it does make sense. Let me bring this up because you're keen for us to really promote this. We got another couple of Coombe TVs before we get to this one, but the 15th of July is the guitars just disappeared.
Live on the telly, thank you.
It's disappeared.
Sorry, just picked it up. He's supposed to sit and play.
As long as it was, as long as it was him, Cat, that's fine. I was a bit worried that it just got pinched. Then that's fine. That's all right then.
Fine.
Yes, we've got this big event that it is for sports prototypes, but the key one is it's the Norman Lackford Memorial, and I mean that is a guy, and I know Ian is going to smile about this as well because it's a name, it's a face, it's a character, it's a legend that we've had racing at Coombe for many decades, you have to say, and he was never going to stop if he could help it, and it is a race in his memory, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And there have been several people at the circuit really helpful trying to pull together some ideas on how we can encourage people to take part. We've had some entries online already, which is really good, and sharing some stuff on social. There's a bit more activity, so it's a race where it's one entry fee, but up to 2 drivers. I think couple of the important key facts that hard standing is guaranteed. So really, the poster, which I'll share on social over the next couple of days, will tell you all about how you go about entering. So if you've got somebody with a sports prototype that you think would like to come and join us, if you're not sure about anything, both the mobile and the main line number on the poster. So we'd be happy to help with any of the queries. Because I gather, Norman, I didn't meet him myself, but when I did some research, I found out he was a very well-loved character and a brilliant racer. So it would be great to get some nice, strong support for that race.
Yeah, he was the ultimate racing addict, I think it's fair to say. You were never going to keep him out. Nothing was going to keep him out of racing cars. And these things, for those that come and watch regularly, and I know obviously the majority of our viewers are thus, these cars are the quickest things around our circuit most of the time. They are, we don't see the sports races enough. So the cars we want to see more. You see the face there that we were familiar with, Ian Salmon interviewing Norman Lackford right there. Absolute character. To do something in his memory would be very special. And amazing bang for the buck. £320 up to 2 drivers, 20-minute qualifying, 2 20-minute races with rolling starts, as I know the sports racers would want. And it is an aggregate point system to determine the overall winner of the Norman Lackford Trophy.
Correct. So so anything that our supporters and fans can do to push that would be great. And we look forward to having a really nice parade.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be pushing that even more once we get to, the next Coombe TV that will be previewing the 2-day race meet. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be back on there again. And then we'll have obviously a preview of this particular race meeting, and we'll We're pushing it even harder, but get your entries in. Come on, these cars are around places. You don't have as many places to race in anymore. Let's get them out. Let's get them racing. We want to see them. So it'll be absolutely brilliant to have as many as possible out there. Right. So thank you for, let me just remove that for now. Right. The next one, and I think this is coming back to you, Ian, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Chris. I know what this is going to be.
Yeah. Just quickly put up, because my beloved Margaret Talling, I love you, Margaret. I always love my hug on a race day from Margaret, and I was gutted when she wasn't at our awards to get her very well-deserved prize for Margaret's service to Combe for, like, again, donkey's years, an amazing person. The Tallings were Norman's official fan club. Wonderful man from the West Country. Totally agree, Margaret. Without question, totally valid points. Right, yes. Ian Danaher, largely. Cat, feel free to get involved as much as you want, but we're going to throw him under the bus, not us.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm joking. Oh, good to hear that we've got John Ford watching. Evening, mate. Hope you're well, buddy. Right. We're going to talk track limits. Now, I know that it was in the news recently when we had touring cars, changing results afterwards, the race winner. In all honesty, Ian Danaher, and Kat knows that even today I was like, do I really need to talk about this? I'm so negative, it's going to be a problem. But actually, they've reined it back in a little bit in terms of the punishment stages. But what we're doing is getting more strict in terms of the track limits. Let me put it from my layman's terms, Ian, and then rip me to shreds on it if I'm wrong. One of the key elements, okay, is that if we consider a track is the edge of the track is the white lines or the curbs on the corners or the apexes, and if we had a barrier on the edge, like the Monaco Grand Prix we're going to have this weekend, nobody goes any further because it doesn't tend to end well.
No.
However, on circuits, we obviously have additional runoff. Now, over the years, those runoff spaces have become grass instead of tarmac. It's had barriers pushed back. It's then become tarmac instead of grass or gravel, so that you can get away with it more. And the idea was to enable us to have less damage to cars by making a mistake. However, what has happened is, as is so often the case in so many things in society, give an inch, they take a mile. And now all of a sudden, the race line seems to be carrying more speed through and out of corners and going past those limits. And it used to be the inside line, if the inner wall of a tyre went past the white line or the edge of a curb, then you were penalised. And it had this progressive thing of just noted, then it was a warning, then it was a penalty that grew in magnitude. Now, what has happened, and again, Ian, you're going to correct me with whatever I now get wrong, is that there is no longer any margin. You cannot go past the white line or the edge of the curb, but the punishments are still in place at the same level, which is good because they weren't going to do that. Have I butchered that, Ian?
No, Chris, you're absolutely right. I've looked at the photographs that Motorsport UK have produced. Certainly 3 of the 5 photographs are exactly the same as the photographs that they produced in 2014 when this, I wouldn't say track limits issue has always been there, but certainly when there was more focus on track limits 8-9 years ago, 3 of those photographs are exactly the same. Looking at Hugh Chambers' letter, the thing that I think stands out for me is that, and there's a change of word here. The old yearbook used to say should be a penalty, and that should has now been changed to will. So it's a very subtle difference in that, as a clerk of the course, you should have been applying those penalties, but now you will have to apply those penalties. The penalties, you're absolutely right, up to a point, are exactly the same as they've been up until, or will be up until the 1st of June when these changes come in. But the difference now, as I say, is the change of those words in that should has changed to will. So that gives a clerk of the course very little opportunity now to apply any degree of mitigation for anybody who is exceeding track limits to excess to gain an unfair advantage. You're right, Chris. The first breach will be no penalty because, like all sports people, drivers are no different to a footballer or a cricketer. They get it wrong on occasions, and we have to appreciate that. But the second breach is,
and Ian, it might not always be their fault that they've suddenly gone that. It
absolutely,
could be someone else.
and I think that's where we with the use of the things like the cameras and the onboard stuff that we get from Castle Combe these days, it won't make the decision easy, but it will make the decision, I think, a lot more consistent. But the second breach is the black and white warning flag, and I've always said to drivers, if you're coming past the start line and you see a black and white warning flag with your number on, chances are you've probably got a reasonably good idea of why it's there and what you've done. So I think as long as people take notice of that warning flag, you're then not into the situation where they're creating a situation for me to look a lot more closely at it, if I'm making sense. So, my advice to drivers would be look at the photographs. They're no real different to what they were when they were published 7 or 8 years ago. The car's got no latitude now, but if you see a warning flag with your number on, you've had your freebie, you've had your one chance. If you continue to do it, there the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth breaches, will totally compromise your race. So see the flag with your number, take notice of it, and drive accordingly to the limits of yourself and the track.
And I think we saw that quite a bit at Snetterton. Was it the weekend just gone, wasn't it? At touring cars, is that they kind of made comment is that as soon as they saw that flag, they dragged themselves back a little bit. They got back into control. And incidentally, I think it's worth putting this up is that Duncan Harris has said as long as it applies to BTCC, young drivers will not copy in club racing. And you're absolutely right. They follow what they're able to see. And it's the same in any sport, whether it's the footballers, is that they need to be mindful of the professional footballers because grassroots will follow them and things like that. What Paul Wiltshire says, it should not just be at certain corners. As you say, white line counts as track limits as well. Now, what I will say, Paul, to that from my perspective is it's not a case that it applies at certain corners. It's that resources can only be applied at the worst corners where people are taking the mickey on it. If we can do it at every corner, it will apply to every corner, wouldn't it, Ian?
Oh, absolutely. And I think certainly if you go to an MSVR circuit where you're lucky enough to have nice, pretty pictures of cars that are consistently breaking the rules on a regular basis to gain advantage, you have that evidence, and a driver really doesn't have a leg to stand on. It's perhaps when you don't have the technology and, somewhere like Castle Combe, that you haven't got the technology to rely on, but you've got very experienced marshals. A lot of the marshals that I've met over the last few weeks since I came back are marshals that have been at the circuit for years. And, if they put a report in saying that, driver A has done X, Y, and Z, as a clerk, you would put your house on it, because at the end of the day, they know what they know what they're looking for. They know what they're doing. And if they say that a penalty should be applied, in my view, the clerk of that cause, has no option to do it, because they are experienced officials. Their judgment is sound, and I stand by their. I will, as a clerk of the cause, I will stand by their judgment.
I thought in the letter was an interesting point that says, look, there may be the times when certain people do manage to get away with it because too many go and suddenly do it, and they can only suddenly be, I'm crudely explaining it, but noting down some of them, and suddenly someone gets away. And they explained it in the same way, is that you could be out going at excess speed along the motorway and you might get away with it. But the theory is the rules are there so that if you are caught doing it, you will get penalised. There is going to be a lot more attention paid to it. So the best thing to do is just assume you're safer not doing it. Don't break those rules. Now, what I will just quickly finish off with Paul's comment is he said that watching touring cars, the penalty given first was 10 seconds. The Blue Book says 5 seconds. That may be because I think that they were applying the rules that were being discussed. I think Alan Gale put in the rules that were being discussed so that they didn't have to change mid-season. So
it might be a championship penalty. Obviously, I've not done very much with touring cars, but it could be, as you say, Alan Gow put it in. It may be a championship. That may have been a championship penalty.
But it's likely to fall in line, I would imagine, isn't it?
Because I'm sure it will now, Chris.
Their angle was that they couldn't introduce a brand new level of policing halfway through the season, basically, and so that's why touring cars have had it already. And at Brands, people are confused when oh God, who's it that won and then didn't win? Mental block on his name now. Sorry, my apologies. I should know. But they were like going, oh, how's he got done? How's he got done? And it's like, yes, because they were applying these rules that were coming in. However, when you look at what's on screen there, first breach, no penalty. Second breach, warning flag, 5-second penalty, a further 10 seconds. Now that helps me because I always got confused trying to remember, does that go to 10 seconds or is it an additional 10 seconds?
It's an additional 10 seconds. So if you do it the third and the fourth time, you'll get 15 seconds.
Yeah. Ricky Collard, thanks, Tim Perry. That's right. It's Ricky Collard.
Ricky Collard, yeah, you're right.
Thank you, Tim. I knew, and Paul Wiltshire said it. I just had a complete mental block with everything else I'm thinking of. So that clears that up for me. And you can see it's in red, is that they know that they had to clear that one up. Then you get drive through in addition to the time penalties. And then the sixth breach is a black flag. So in all honesty, Ian, is that it isn't the nightmare that I thought it was. And Cat was completely testimony to me changing my tone over a sequence of emails earlier today where I kind of was going, it's going to be a nightmare. I mean, you know, we all had images that competitors were going to get confused, spectators were going to get confused, us commentators were going to go, ignore the first 7 cars you can see there because they're not the lead 7. It's actually the 8th plates car is leading because of the penalties. It's not, and that was largely because the discussion at the beginning of the year was that first breach was going to get a time penalty, wasn't it?
Well,
and I got to say,
this is very much I think a very sensible compromise, and I think as a clerk of the course, this gives you the opportunity to work with our competitors, our customers, to make this work.
Agreed, 100%. And you know, I think the big one is that we may well see a few more people falling foul of it in the early stages where they've got to get used to, and I think somebody's pretty much said it, is that you know, the rules are there. If you're breaking them, then there's every chance you're gonna get consequences. I mean, Jed Doyle said, I'm not sure it's quite right, Jed, but rules are there to be broken. If you get away with it, then so be it. If you don't, then you've got to suffer the consequences. So I definitely agree with the latter part of that sentiment for sure.
I think at international level, Chris, and you will have seen this in GTs, professional drivers will push the limits until they get caught, or until they're made aware that the race director or the clerk is watching them. They will then wind their neck in and do it properly, but they will push you as far as they can until such time as they're spotted. Once they're spotted, they'll pack it in. But you know, that's the nature of the people that you're dealing with. You will push the boundary until such time as you trip over the boundary, and then potentially you have to suffer the consequences.
And Ian, I've got to think back now. I mean, I forget how long ago was it that the track limit rules, as we have known them, came in, 5 years ago, if I had a rough guess?
I think it's 2014. These photographs, I haven't looked at my race bag sitting next to me. I haven't had a chance since I got in this evening to have a look at them, but I'm pretty certain that these photographs first appeared probably 6, maybe even 9 years ago. So
wow,
it's always been a discussion topic over the years with Motorsport UK circuit owners and competitors. But I think, you know, it's something that's quite rightly reviewed on a regular basis, and I think that the set of rules that they've come out with here, whilst they're probably not as controversial as maybe 1 or 2 of the rule changes that were made at the beginning of the year could have been conceived of, considered by. But this is a good compromise.
I agree. I mean, I was terrified when they were talking about the almost draconian levels of penalties that were going to be applied. It was like, oh my goodness, please don't. It's just going to confuse everything. It's going to lose us drivers. This makes complete sense now. But I remember the point I was making when it first came out, and I remember again from the commentator's perspective, is that for a number of months, I don't even think it was the full season when it first came in, it was mayhem that people were suddenly getting penalties and dropping down, and they were dropping down on TSL, and it was like, but they quickly got the idea, didn't they? They soon changed their ways, and it became a lot less penalties that were being dished out because people weren't breaking the rules as much.
No, they weren't. They weren't. And I think, we as clerks and we as a racing club need to work with our competitors to make sure that, this isn't going to become a big issue. But I think we need to work very carefully, and we need to work with our customers, with our competitors, to make sure that this works. Because when it works, it'll benefit all of us: commentators, clerks of the course, and competitors. We've got to make it work.
Agreed.
I think
Yeah.
one of the other things from listening to the training, sorry to interrupt, Chris, last night, was the fact that these things are there to help people understand racing with respect, and protecting your car and minimizing damage, and lots of different things that are the consequences of not adhering to these, if that makes sense. It was very much all an webinar about changing things that weren't going to be for the greater good. I think they're keen to just make sure that people, the racers, enjoy their racing, and it's done, with a lot of passion and pleasure, but safely and with a minimum amount of, damage involved as well.
But I mean, that one was an interesting one for me, is that I don't buy that line, if I'm honest, because this isn't something that normally causes damage per se. This is that it ain't cricket, and we know who said that when someone's breaking the rules on track limits. But in fairness, what it is very clear is that they make the point that said if there was barriers there, we wouldn't go further. The reason why you now have the runoff is, so it's kind of gone ahead of itself there, is that yes, there is now the runoffs to avoid damage to cars, but now people are taking the mickey, and we need to rein them back in again. And it's fair. And people now know that it is, if any part of the tyre, and again, there was an interesting thing where they said, you can have differences in cars that can make it harder to interpret. There's some where you can't see the tyres, so you're not sure whether there's the inside edge has gone past it, which is what the rule was. Now, if any part from the outside of your car, the outside of your tyre, goes over the white line or over the curb, it's a strike. You've now gone too far. Slow it down, because that would have, and if it was a barrier, you wouldn't have taken it quite so fast. You'd have gone a little bit slower. You'd have gone a little bit tighter. You wouldn't have gone 2-3 wide or whatever it might be, because you would have hit a barrier. Right, now let's assume there's a barrier there. You're gonna get done for it. It's as simple as that. Jackie Fay, hi Jackie, good to hear from you. Track limits are marshalled on track days with a lot less people on post compared to race days. One-off indiscretions are accepted. It's the repeat offenders that get reported. It's not rocket science. Absolutely, Jackie, I agree. It's just making sure that people now know that there's no leeway. They can't go any further. So I think we're going to get a few more falling foul, but not for very long. Interesting one, Ian, for you to field this one. Andy Lawrence, my co-commentator, the production boss, and everything to do with Bristol Motor Club for the Dick Mayo Sprint and all of that lot. Andy Lawrence says the key word in 12.22.1, which is this one here that we can see, says may be penalised. So it says may be penalised here. It doesn't mean they have to be. However, what it does also say here, that they've changed should to will be applied. So I'm not quite sure how we can interpret that, Ian. That's thrown you under the bus a bit there, hasn't it?
It has. I think we're going to have to go with should and will. I think what these are designed to is to make the playing field a lot more.
Actually, in fairness,
I'm
going to help you out, Ian. Apologies for throwing you under that one. And Andy's probably right. Is that it's not so much about doesn't mean they have to be penalised. What I think that may be penalised here is covering them and saying, look, if it's missed because a whole load of people do it, and you can't have a driver coming in saying, yeah, but the car ahead of me did it,
Yeah.
or the car behind me did it. It's like, look, no, you are being penalised. If it's been missed, like a police car missing the car going at 90 mile an hour on the motorway, that is life. We can't help that. So that's why the may be penalised is there. However, if they're caught doing it, they will be applying these penalties. And I think that's how it's interpreted, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you there, Chris. I think, yes, it's, if you get caught, those are the penalties that will be applied if you're getting caught on a regular basis. And that's what these penalties are designed to do. They're designed to penalise the driver that's trying to take advantage on a regular basis. The first two breaches, I'm going to ruin your race. You carry on doing it, breach 3 through to breach 6 will. So it's a simple thing. We have the mechanism to signal to them that they've been caught. If they carry on, they suffer the consequence.
Agreed. Yeah. Paul Wiltshire says, I hope, and I presume you mean Motorsport UK rather than a musky scent trainer, we will get confirmation. It literally, this has come out today, hasn't it?
It has literally. It's as a result of last night's webinar, and we got this information, Cat, didn't we, about midday?
Yeah. That makes. Sorry, Cat. I keep hiding your face there when I'm putting these comments up. Sorry, Cat.
All right.
But don't forget, I can see you under. So if you start pulling silly faces, I know that you're doing it. David Vass, our very own David Vass, he says, hi, I have to say that I hate time penalties. We much prefer to see place dockings. A 5-second penalty might not be a penalty at all, or it could mean a few places in the closely contested races. In oval racing, we just docked places for infringements, which is fairer. But not necessarily, David, because if the gap happens to be 30 seconds between one place and another, it's hardly fair that a transgression of track limits loses you 30 odd seconds. I get the sentiment, but it's not a linear argument, is it? But valid point, David. I get your point.
Good point, Dave. I've got to say that.
But it also shows how difficult this is. It's a tricky one. I'm sort of like half reading these before I put them up, just in case, by the way. Duncan Harris says, I don't think it's a big change. We have had warning 5-second for a long time with MSV and BRSCC. Duncan, you're absolutely right. But the key point being is that what the change is that it's not the inner wall of the tyre being past it. It's any part of it past that line is that you're now going to get done for it. The good news is that the penalty sequence has remained the same. That is big news today, because that wasn't going to be the case in the briefing that we were getting at the beginning of the year. It was going to be a time penalty after your first breach, which was mind-blowing. It was going to be mayhem if that was the case. So I do take my hat off to the guys for doing that. Tim Perry says, I understand is that if they are picked up for a penalty, they will apply the penalty. Absolutely, Tim. You're absolutely right. If they see it, they will be, or they'll be warned, etc. They'll step through that sequence that you see on the screen. Louis Davidson, so that's our, I'm presuming that is our GT Championship coordinator. Disallowed laps in qualifying have to be shown on the results sheet. Can we do this?
Yes, we can.
Oh, is that going to show now on the TSL results screen?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Brilliant. So there you go, Louis. Simple as that. That was the answer. Thank you for that, Ian.
If it doesn't happen, Louis, come and see me.
Yeah, because incidentally, that's the key thing that I've kind of gone past is that, well, it does show it there in qualifying. And I quite like this, Ian, is that it's ever so simple. If they break the track limits on a qualifying lap, that lap goes. Bang.
Yes. No arguing.
I like that. Joshy says, good night, Dorsey and everyone. Good night, Joshy. Have a good sleep, mate. Andy Lawrence, who brought up this pardon me, may and will. Points A and B come into play if the word may is used. If the penalising is done, then the criteria will be used. There is still discretion on whether those rules are brought into play. Now, on that note then, actually, Ian, and I don't know whether you know the answer to this, is there discretion anymore on this, or is it just... Because I mean, you hear the fact that it's judge of fact is that no, you broke it, but or could they look at it and go, well, actually, they were bumped by somebody else, and that forced them over? I don't know the answer to that one.
I think at the end of the day, Chris, if there's evidence to corroborate that, then I think that evidence needs to be taken into consideration. I go back to my should and will. I think what this is being. Why we're looking closely at this is that people will try and push the boundaries and exceed track limits on a regular basis to gain advantage. I think that's where we're looking at. If there's a melee of car in a first corner coming together in a Formula Ford race, or 6 saloon cars all racing for the same 2 or 3 meters of tarmac, as a clerk of the course, you've got to take that into consideration. This is going to come into play probably as races progress, on the basis that people are trying to make up time, and in order to make up time, potentially they will look to try and exceed track limits. A first corner melee, none of us, I don't think, would I would say portion responsibility. Yes, we might have to look for who was responsible, but if people are taking avoiding action of a spinning car, or maybe unfortunately a couple of cars that have come together, then that degree of mitigation has got to be there, because it's not their fault that they've been forced off the track. They are in control of a car that perhaps is racing or is clear of traffic and on its own, and deliberately trying to catch the car in front of them by exceeding track limits. That's where we need to be consistent and make sure that doesn't happen.
Agreed. No, absolutely. And I mean, that does throw up one thing that I've just suddenly clocked it doesn't make clear here. Is one of the other things at the beginning of the year that was being talked about, and it hasn't said one way or the other here, is that it was not going to be possible to contest it. A driver could not contest it. And I'm thinking now, in everything that I've read, it doesn't talk about that one way or the other, does it?
At the end of the day, the driver has the option to question the decision, or to question the penalty that's applied.
But at the beginning of the year, they were saying that categorically it was not going to be up for debate. It was going to be, bang, you've got it. You cannot come to us and debate it. They've obviously softened that.
That's right. They appear now to still have the option. But then again, would you be in a strong position to question a judge of fact, or to question a photograph of your car exceeding track limits on a regular basis?
Well, Louis Davidson actually says, again, our GT championship coordinator and long-term racer, and one of the instructors at the Castle Combe Racing School, I hasten to add, says without a justifiable reason. So it seems there is an option to apply common sense. And I can't see that.
Yeah, it's at the top, Appendix 1, Chris. Louis, you're absolutely right. I think that is in there on the basis that if you do have a first corner coming together, or a first line spinner, and you have to take avoiding action, that is a justifiable reason for getting out of the way, because you're avoiding a car perhaps that's collided with another car or spun, and you then have a justifiable reason maybe to go to the side of the circuit, because you're avoiding making what potentially is a collision an even worse one.
And Andy Lawrence actually says contesting is in the judicial rules in another part of the yearbook. Agreed, but that was allegedly going to be eliminated for this particular set of rules. So
it's in there, and it's up to the driver to put an appropriate case to challenge the decision that's been made.
The point being is that there's not going to be that many where they're going to be likely to have a justifiable reason to say, I went wide, Gov, because of this, but we'll see.
I went wide on a regular basis to gain advantage.
That's exactly. So
will come into their own.
I mean, from your perspective, Ian, have we done this enough justice now to sort of explain it?
Absolutely,
and
I think, Chris,
put it into a more positive light.
Absolutely, I think the rules come in from the 1st of June, and certainly, they will. We have no option to apply them. But we're always open to discussion, and certainly working with people like Louis. I've known Louis a long time, and you wouldn't get me behind the wheel of one of those things for love of money.
Yeah.
Louis done it, and I respect his wise wisdom on things like this. And I think with the coordinators and with the clerks and with the competitors, we need to work very hard between us to make this work.
Agreed. And that was why, Cat, coming to you for a minute, I know when you first threw this at me today, and I apologise that I was very negative, wasn't I? Because I knew that it was a pull a pin job, and throw the grenade in. But in fairness, and hopefully you've felt this in the way that we've discussed it, is to see, look, it is a positive thing.
And I have to kind of bow to everyone else's superior knowledge, because I look at the blue book and then I close the blue book and then I open it again and I close it, because there's just so much to learn, and it's kind of just finding things as they come up and then studying it in more detail. But I think the important thing for us as a club was just making sure that communication with our drivers is so important, that if there's something that's shared by MS UK on any level, it's important that we get that message out to our drivers and their teams and supporters as quickly as we can. So it was really aimed at not trying to throw something negative into the mix, but just saying it's going to happen, it's happening soon, and ultimately how can we make sure we share that with everybody as efficiently as possible.
And I have to applaud yourself and Ian, and obviously our fearless leader Ken Davis, that you guys were all in an ops meeting whilst you were emailing me this stuff today, saying, right, we want to talk about this, and I have to say it was a good idea. I think it's been a very useful, and I hope everybody watching has agreed. I know some of you will be kind of like, I'm not bothered, but I mean, it's been great that we've had it from different perspectives. Sorry, Paul, I didn't put this up. He said, as a post chief, I would report the fact as I see it if a driver is pushed wide. So he would report that the driver was pushed wide. That's why he broke the limits. So it's all there. Oh, by the way, Goose, good evening, mate. Quickly popped in. Unfortunately, on nights, 15 minutes break isn't long enough. I can imagine, mate. But hopefully, it's been some good input. Thank you for your input, everybody. It's been really good. It's gonna throw up some curveballs for us for a little while, but I think in reality, once people know that's the edge of the track, stop going past it, and all you do is you just slow down a little bit, it's okay. I'm just going to quickly put up, Alan Cooper has said, I don't think I need to read all of that. I always use my discretion when reporting competitors and always treat everyone similarly. Nothing really changes with these amendments. However, we must ensure that as judges of fact, we must not be overzealous and cause the bad feeling that could have been the downfall of our Formula 4 championship. Yes, you're right, Alan, is that some time ago that kind of caused a little bit of an issue and it got picked back up again. If anything, though, Ian, I would say this is the other way, that it makes it black and white. There, it suddenly gets rid of that ambiguity of like, was the inside line of the tyre really over it? It's like, no, if you're remotely, any part that is making contact with the tarmac goes past that white line, it's out.
It's clear. Yeah, it's clear. The ball is out, and you will be penalised accordingly.
Correct. And everybody's playing by those rules. Everybody knows it. It's good. So, Kat, I have to applaud you for persevering with me on the emails today.
I do their best sometimes, not all the time, but yeah.
Well, I applaud you that you actually listened to what my concerns were at the same time, and it was valid. But the more I interrupted my working day to read this document so that I knew it, which I really shouldn't have been doing, but I did. I was flat out as it was, but I read it and it made sense. Tim Perry, one of Orange Army, says it's been enlightening, but it is a fact that people need to know the limits are there and what the penalties are. Exactly right. And I think that kind of brings us to do a decent conclusion on this show. In all reality, people will be shocked. I can actually be serious as well occasionally. Even with a gin in my hand, I can still be serious occasionally, but I try not to make a habit of it, though. Mr. Ford says, Howard always said you pay to stay on the black stuff. Absolutely. I agree. That's a good one, Fordy. I agree. Hang on, just quickly put this up. Darren Duffield, is it possible for some photos to be taken at an important corner at Combe with a static car on the correct line, etc., just to show it in the real world? Listen, I'm sure it can, Darren, but let's be completely honest, is that the beauty of this is it's completely clear now, is that the white line, if you're even the outside is over it or the curb in or anything, it's out. It's as simple as that. But Cat nodded, so I'm sure that will be something that will be looked into, Darren, to keep your drivers happy, and we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure we've got opportunity to do that. It was somebody, one of our racers was there on track day, maybe on a lunch break or something like that. We could sort that. I'd need some help and guidance, and I'm sure if I speak to Steve Weston, we can do what's needed to make it easier, especially for new drivers as well.
Yeah, agree. Paul Wiltshire says lots of talk about track limits, but does it not also come down to driving standards as well for repetitive events? Absolutely. Our beloved Margaret Tallon says, won't be at the next meeting. Unfortunately, we'll be at Le Mans 24-hour. Ah, bless you. I know you will be at that one, Margaret. So I'll have to wait until the next one for that hug. And hopefully 1 year soon, I shall be joining you over there, but I'll be in the commentary box. She knows that's my bucket list, is I want to be part of a commentary team at Le Mans 24-hour. Bless her. She keeps trying to help. She tells everyone over there, you need to get Chris over here. You need to, and bless you. I love you for that. Thank you very much. That brings it to Paul Wiltshire actually says, so will I. So he's going to be at Le Mans 24-hour. I do wish we didn't. Ian, there's the one for you to take on board. We need to stop colliding with the Le Mans 24-hour. Lots of people say that. Lots of people say we need to avoid that weekend.
I'll message Eduardo Freitas now and tell him to shift it.
Yeah. I was meaning more us, to be fair, but you know, I wouldn't argue with you, to be fair, mate.
All right.
Cat, Racing Club Manager, congratulations on the title that befits the effort and the amazing job you've been doing, and it's so good to have you as an integral part of the team.
Thanks. It's a privilege and an honour.
No, the honour is ours. And Ian, welcome to the Castle Combe Racing Club. It's so good to have you on board. You and I have known each other for many, many years and always catch up whenever we get a chance. And now you've got a say in the way that we go in, and in one of our captains we trust.
Thank you, Chris.
So thank you very much for everybody watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. From Ian Danaher, Competitions Director, Cat Dall'Occo, sorry, I'll take a run up to that again, Racing Club Manager. Cat, actually, I keep meaning to ask you, tell us, what's the origin of that name, Dall'Occo?
So it's Italian, and the word Dal means from the region of. Occo is the region from which my husband's family originated. So Occo isn't actually a region anymore, but that's where the name comes from.
Fabulous. I kept meaning to ask you that off record, but I thought let's ask you live, so you couldn't escape the question then.
Well, I thought it meant going to Italy a bit more often, but didn't. So never mind.
That was the attempt when you were with Ferraris.
True. Yeah, that is true.
Absolutely. Paul Wiltshire says, good man to have known Ian for a long time. And that's many of us that say that. Yeah, many of us that say that. Craig Cook, hello, mate. Good to hear from you. Great to see Ian and Cat on stream. Agreed. Guys, thank you so much for coming on as guests to this show. Thank you to all of our viewers. It's been a pleasure. We will see you at, what is it, Cat? The 11th and 12th of June?
10th and 11th.
10th and 11th.
And just one last thing. If you're racing on the 11th, but you want to come from the Friday night, we've got camping, town corner, and the trailer park overflow. So it will all be clearly marked on the paddock map. It's just because we've got people switching over from Saturday and Sunday, but there's a lot going on. You know, you're most welcome to come and stay, you know, and camp for a night or two if you can.
Fabulous. Thank you for that, Kat. And I'll try to remember to reiterate that when we'll be doing another show in just 2 weeks' time. We'll do a preview.
I'll remind you. Yeah. Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
But 2 weeks' time,
Okay.
I'll be back for another Coombe TV to preview the race weekend. It's going to be a weird one, actually, because on Tuesday night, I'm doing Classic Touring Car Racing Club TV. And of course, we've got a whole load of Classic Touring Car Racing Club stuff. I host their awards and do some of their events. They're an amazing bunch, and I can't wait to see their cars whipping around Castle Combe. They're going to be incredible. So we're doing that on Tuesday with them. And then Thursday, we got Coombe TV, which we'll do the preview with our people. We'll try and get some more guests on. And then we've got, 10th, 11th of June, the race day. So thank you very much to you all for joining us. Have a very good evening, and we'll see you all very soon. Good night.
See ya.